Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We start Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa bis-salah ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa nahmiduhu subhanahu wa ta'ala wa nashkuruhu alladhi hadana lihadha wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Today we are in part 3 in lesson number 4, and inshallah last time we were talking about al-jawf and the letters of al-jawf, the 3 letters of the huruf al-mad, lengthening 3 letters, the alif, the waw and the ya, with their certain conditions. And in this part inshallah we are going to talk about the throat. As we previously mentioned, the throat is one general exit, but the difference between al-jawf and the throat is that the throat has 3 specific exits. We have aqsa al-halq, the furthermost part, where the vocal cords area is, and it's this part. And then we have the middle throat, which is wasat al-halq, and this part includes the epiglottis, which is called lisan al-mizmar. And I would like you to remember this because it has to do with the pronunciation of the letter Ain in the middle throat. And then we have the closest throat, which is Adna al-Halq. And just to remind you that when we say the furthermost from the outer part of the lips, and the middle, it's connected also to the outer part of the lips, and the closest meaning the closest to the outer part of the lips. Now, as we all can see, that the throat is divided into 3 specific exits: furthermost, and the middle, and the closest. The furthermost throat allows the hamza and the ha to be pronounced. Let's have a look here. I'm going to come back to this, but let us see here. The throat has 3 special exits: furthermost, middle, and closest. They are 6 letters that exit from the throat: hamza, ha, aynun, ha, ghaynun, kha. Before I proceed in my explanation, I would like to give you an idea regarding al-jazriya, which we already started with al-halq, okay, with al-jawf, when we talked about the alif wa ukhtaha, okay. And I'm going to read it in Arabic, and then we are going to read its translation. And this is not obligatory, but this is really interesting to know and very beneficial to study, okay. Scholar al-Jazri, he said, مخارج الحروف 17 على الذي يختاره من اختبر، فألف الجوف وأختاها وهي حروف مد للهواء تنتهي، ثم لأقصى الحلق همز هاء، ثم لوسطه فعين حاء، أدناه غين خاؤها. Now, I think you remember this part. وهي حروف مد للهواء تنتهي, but he started فألف الجوف وأختاها وهي حروف مد للهواء تنتهي, and these are the words regarding حروف الجوف, the letters of al-jawf. And here he is saying, let's read the translation here. He's saying that the articulation points of the letters are 17. According to those who choose it by examination, those scholars examined the letters and they chose at the end to make it 17 articulation points regarding the letters. And they are: the empty space in the throat and mouth has the alif and its 2 sisters, that is the waw and ya, as we previously mentioned, and they are the mad letters which stop with the stopping of air. Our part here, which is the throat, then from the lowest part of the throat are hamzun wa ha'un, hamza wa ha, and from its middle, meaning the middle part of the throat, then the ha'u wa ayn, al-ha' wal ayn, and its closest, the throat's area closest to the outer lips are kha wa ghayn. Okay, so this is the translation of the words that Imam al-Jazri mentioned. Okay, now we're going to start with the furthermost throat. It allows two letters, al-hamza wal-ha, okay, to exit from it. So two letters exit from the furthermost throat. They exit from the same place, okay? What differs between them? What differs between them is the characteristics, the characters of the letters. So if you find letters exiting from the same place, then what differs is the characters. And in the case of the lengthened letters, what differs was the mouth parts. How was it? It was not the characters. They shared the same articulation area, they shared the same characteristics, but what differed was how the tongue took place, how the lips took place, and so on. Now, the characters, and we already studied three characters and its opposites. We studied shidda, rakhawa, and bayniyya. We studied elevating or lowering, istala wa istifal, and we studied whisper and apparent. And just as a reminder, it's either the letters are shadida or rikhwa or bayniyya. It can't have two at the same time. And here it's either this or that, apparent or whispered, elevated or lowered. Okay, so these are the ones we studied. How does their characters affect in the exit? Now, how does the sukoon hamza exit? And you know what, as I mentioned before, and I will keep reminding you that to know the exiting point of a letter, we use it in its sukoon form with a preceding hamza, hamzatul wasl, with any of the three movements. Okay, so we can say ab, that's the ba. We can say, for example, the fa, the sin, as, us, is, and in the three cases the sin is pronounced from the same part, so we can really identify where the makhraj is. So we need it in its sukoon state and with a moved letter before it, but this can only be applied to all the letters except the three lengthened letters, as we mentioned before, because the three lengthened letters have to have a homogeneous movement preceding them. The alif has to have a fatha, the waw has to have a dhamma, and the ya has to have a kasra before it. And again, why are we experimenting with a sukoon letter? We are experimenting with a sukoon letter because this is where the characters are really felt, shown. The articulation point is really in the sukoon, you can identify it. Okay? Okay. They are, I mean, the characters are in their best clarity. They are in their best clarity. And we use a hamza before the letter. Now, let's observe. Let's say let's pronounce the Hamza Sukun, let's pronounce the Ha Sukun, and let's pronounce them both after each other. But there's no qalqala in the Hamza. Please make sure that there's no qalqala when you are pronouncing the Hamza. And this is the Hamza Sukun we're talking about. And this is the letter which is, we chose the Hamza to come before it. And let us say again. Put your fingers on the throat and feel the Hamza, feel the vocal cords as much as you can, of course. Okay, let's pronounce the Ha. Again. Okay, what did you feel? What's the difference between them, between both? Now the Hamza is a hard letter, okay? The Hamza is one of the al-huruf al-shadida. This means that the vocal cords close totally. They prevent any flow of the sound, nor the air. The vocal cords close totally, and like here. See here? They totally close. It's a total closure and preventing anything to pass through. And be careful not to make any qalqala. Don't say like when we pronounce the word yu'minun. There's a Hamza Sukun here. So it's very easy to fall into this mistake and say yu'minun. You heard this? Yu'minun. This is a wrong pronunciation to the Hamza. It's yu'minun. Okay. Now, what about the moved Hamza? We have a Hamza with a fatha here. If I say what happened? The vocal cords parted. Okay, so by parting, by spacing of the two vocal cords, I was able to pronounce the Hamza fatha. And by the total closure of the vocal cords, I was able to pronounce the Hamza sakina. Okay, so what is meant by parting? What is meant by spacing, making space between them? When we pronounce a Hamza with a Dhamma movement, we space between the two vocal cords. Like, for example, when we say oo, 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 same thing. I part between the two vocal cords. Now, and what about here? So if I want to pronounce a Sukun Hamza, the vocal cords close. When I want to pronounce a moved Hamza, then the vocal cords open. And what about here? The Ha. Okay, there is partial parting in the vocal cords. Now, and just this is a very important note. Sound will disappear if widely open, if the vocal cords are widely open, because there will be no friction between the air and the vocal cords, which will cause no heard sound. No sound will be heard. Let's give it a try. If I say, I made a partial opening to the vocal cords. What if I make an extra opening and I say, you see, there's no sound. There's no Ha. Compare. because the vocal cords are partially separated, but in the other case, they are wide separated. So there's no sound. Why is that? Because there's no friction happening between the air and this part, so there's no sound. It's the vocal cords are so widely open that the air is just, running with no vibration, so you can't hear any voice. Okay? And no friction, with no friction. And remember when we mentioned how the sound occurs? It occurs either by collision or by parting. Like in this case, for example, let's take it part by part. In this case, it's collision, and they are all sukoon letters. Let's give it a try. Okay? Now, by collision, the sukoon letters are pronounced by collision. So let's give it a try. The two parts collide together. Let's pronounce the ba, but let's not make a qalqala, neither in the ba or the qaf. And let's say ab. Ab. What happened? The two parts that the two lips, they are the two parts that the ba exits from. They collide, pronouncing the ba sound. Ab, the sukoon ba. What about the mim? What about the qaf? Just total closure of the exit points. Az. They do collide, but not like the qaf, not like the mim, not like the ba. Why? Because this has rakhawa, this has shidda, okay, and this has bayniyah. Okay, but all of them, they are pronounced by colliding the two parts of the makhraj. And we will talk more about the qalqala letters later. Later on, we're going to talk about the qalqala letters. What about the moved letters? Now we know the sukoon letters, they are pronounced by collision. What about the moved letters? Let's have a look here. Moved letters are pronounced by parting of two parts. الحروف المتحركة تخرج بالتباعد. Okay? Like we did mention this, and I gave an example of the paper. When I tore the paper apart, you hear a voice. Why is this? Because they are parting. They are moving away from each other, the two parts. So, and it's the same with the moved letters. They are pronounced by parting of two parts. Let's try the same letters here. Let's say the ba maftuha, mim with the fatha, dal with the fatha, qaf with the fatha. How do we pronounce the ba fatha? We already have the two parts collided. This is how we start. And then we open. Ba, ma, the, qa. So the sound occurred by spacing the two organs used in pronouncing each letter. Okay, so this is important to know. This is very important. So the sound occurred by spacing the two organs used in pronouncing each letter. And also in nature, sound occurs due to vibration. And this is the case of the three empty space letters, huruful jawf. And there are also sounds that occur due to the friction between two parts. We took all this. We actually went through this. And there are letters that are called huruf ihtikakiyya. Regarding the sound is pronounced, is heard by friction, like the letter ha, for example. There's friction of the air passing through, and the letter ha also. The vocal cords part and opens partially and not totally in the letter ha, for example. Now let us, and this is what we already said now. There are sounds caused by vibrations, others are caused by friction. Now, you know, if we say, for example, ihdina, okay, if we say this word in Surah Al-Fatiha, ihdina, now the ha was heard because the two vocal cords were just parted a little bit. But what if I extra the separation and I say ihdina, ihdina, you heard no ha actually, okay? So there's no friction happening, as though there is no sound. Only at its start, the sound just at the beginning, and then the sound disappears. And the same here with, for example, this word. Try to pronounce the following word by totally parting the vocal cords while pronouncing the letter ha, for example. Let us say al-qah. I'll pronounce it normally. Al-qahhar. Okay? What if I extra open the vocal cords? Al-qah. I can't continue. First of all, there's no friction for the ha, and also there's no air to continue reading. And it causes a sect because the ha sound disappears. So partial parting of the vocal cords, allowing friction causing the sound of the ha, but extra parting makes the sound vanish. Okay, it just totally disappears. Therefore, we emphasize on that the letter ha is pronounced by the partial parting of the vocal cords, so that friction occurs between the air and the vocal cords. So there is a flow of sound caused by the friction of the two vocal cords. And in the hamza sakina, the makhraj closes, it collides, but in the ha, the makhraj does not close. This is the difference between both. The makhraj in the hamza closes, and these are the vocal cords, and in the ha they don't close. And that is therefore the hamza is hard, it's harf shadid, it's strong, and the ha is a soft letter, rikhwa, and it's also whispered. So they are both opened and lowered. We are going, let us just finish this part and say that the characteristics of the letters, these are the characteristics of both letters. So what is the difference here? The ha is whispered, there's a lot of air, while the hamza is apparent, it's majhura. And also here, the hamza is a hard letter. The makhraj totally closes, but here the makhraj is open, so the sound runs. Both are lowered letters. We don't say a, we don't say ha, okay? And both are opened because they are not huruf itbaq, so the tongue does not closes on the upper palate. Thank you so much for your attendance, and inshallah we continue the letters of the throat in the coming parts, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.